the concept is so true. We are employed to do a job. We're not employed to be somewhere. And if you are capable of doing that job from anywhere, why should that not be possible?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Recruitment Podcast by Recruit CRM. I'm Kate O'Neill, your host, and as usual, I'm here to bring you conversations with some of the best minds in recruitment. So get ready. We're going to dive in deep to some really interesting conversations on everything recruitment. Now, today we have Alex Dick here with us. He is going to take us through a very favourite topic of his, I know, the topic of remote work in recruitment.
What you said is completely true. So I'm massively passionate about remote working and flexible working and treating people properly and all of that sort of stuff. So I spent quite a few years doing that in the legal world, and now trying to bring a lot of the learnings I had from sort of assisting in building some pretty large businesses in the legal space. I'm now bringing that to recruitment and doing things a little bit differently. So yeah, just trying to build something interesting and exciting and a bit different than a lot of the other stuff that's out there. Although occasionally people tell me it's the same, but I think they just don't really understand the landscape.
No, and I know what you do, and I know it's different. And I think I think working remotely as a recruiter, I know this myself because even before COVID, I worked remotely for like 7 years. So I've been doing it a lot longer than it was the norm. And so I understand as much as I know you do, it offers an unparalleled flexibility. It allows professionals to connect with top talent from anywhere in the world. With the right tools and strategies, remote recruiters can streamline hiring processes, foster those meaningful relationships that we need with clients, candidates. But actually, and I know you're really hot on this, you can achieve that work-life balance that, for me, always fueled my productivity and satisfaction, and I know it does for others as well. So it really is a modern way to thrive in the recruitment industry. So I'm really interested to know what inspired you to adopt a remote recruiting model at Alexander Lyons Solutions.
So the honest answer is my wife became pretty poorly in 2020. So early 2020, she was very poorly. And off the back of that, I sort of realised that life's short, realised how much of my kids' lives that I'd missed and all of that sort of stuff. And it made me want to do things differently, but also wanting to give people those things that I'd realised were so important. And a lot of that is centred around the flexibility and being able to be remote, being able to work from anywhere, all of that sort of stuff. So sort of personal hardship is the honest truth of what sort of caused me to see that I wanted to bring that to recruitment, or decide that was the route to go down. And also seeing the benefits it's had on people. It's huge, and I want to give as many people those benefits as I possibly can. So, and I don't believe a lot of sort of the naysayers around recruitment say that you can't run sales environments remotely and all of that sort of stuff. But some of the biggest companies in the world have salespeople based all over the place, and they're doing perfectly fine. Yeah. So and often people say, well, you can't do it in recruitment. Well, again, people go and open remote offices or whatever. It's been happening. Well, as you said, you did it for a long time before COVID came along. So it's perfectly possible to do it. It's just there has to be a willingness to embrace it, and a lot of people just aren't willing to embrace it at the moment for whatever reason. And I have various views on what those reasons are. But yeah, there's just the sort of, if the willingness is there from management, then life becomes very simple. If people in management hate the idea of it, then life becomes overly complicated, because you can pick holes in anything if you want to. Like, you could take any business model and pick holes in it if you want to go into it with that mindset, but equally there's huge benefits of it as well. And if you're a glass half full, glass half empty person, will change your stance on it. And yeah, I regularly get told remote businesses can't work. I'm just thinking, sort of looking at the world going, yeah, I think there's plenty that would prove that that's not correct. But
Well, I think it filters down, doesn't it? If you've got people high up saying that and believing that, they're just gonna, it's just gonna manifest, isn't it?
Yeah,
If
exactly.
it's not going to work if they don't believe it's going to work. So I think sometimes when they say, well, it didn't work in our agency, yeah, but did you A, want it to work, and B, believe
Yeah. Are
it
you the
would work?
problem?
Because otherwise you won't put the right infrastructures in place, you
Yeah, yeah.
won't implement it properly, and then of course it's not going to work.
No, exactly. And I think people think it's the Wild West where people can just do whatever they want. But people are still paid to do the same job as they'd be paid to do in the office. So there's the expectations are still the same. They're not sat there going, like in our world, oh, you can't bill for 6 months and that'll be fine. You're still expected to bill just as much, just as regularly as you otherwise are. It's just I'm not as concerned of the process. I'm not concerned about whether they're doing that on a beach, sat in a van somewhere, traveling around the world, or sat at their home office or sat in an office. None of that bothers me. Work is not somewhere that, and it's never been a location, other than, of course, if you work in a job that requires you to be somewhere. But work is a thing you do, not a place you are. And
Yeah.
that's a distinction that the head of people for Spotify actually was the person who I think I've coined that from badly. But the concept is so true. We are employed to do a job. We're not employed to be somewhere. And if you are capable of doing that job from anywhere, why should that not be possible?
Mm. Yeah. No, I totally agree. What do you see as being the biggest challenges the recruiters face when working remotely, and how sort of people could overcome them?
So I think a lot of people, especially if they come from very sort of office heavy environments, they feel very much like they're missing the social element. And so if you're sat in a room with people, it's very easy to just have a chat. You have to make a bit more effort if you're working remotely. So you have to
Mm.
make an effort to call people and make an effort to have those conversations. And so I guess that loneliness is a biggie, but it's easy to deal with just by putting yourself out there. But there are a fair few people I've come across over the years that kind of get in a rut because they don't go and put themselves out there, and they're sort of sat there feeling like they're on their own. Whereas
Yeah.
if they'd actually gone to the effort of speaking to people and gone to the effort of putting themselves out there, they perhaps wouldn't have felt that way. So I think, but I'm a great believer in treating adults like adults. So if you don't put yourself out there and then you say you're lonely, well, it's not everyone around you's fault that you're lonely in a sense. If you've put yourself out there and you've made an effort to speak to your colleagues and made an effort to get involved and go to see people who are local to you and all of that sort of stuff, then perhaps you wouldn't have felt that way. Most likely you wouldn't have felt
Yeah.
that way. Um, and I've placed hundreds, if not thousands, of lawyers working this way, in a flexible manner. And the one concern that they all had was loneliness. And 98%, maybe even 99%, never ever reported that that was an issue once they started. It was just the idea of it was the problem.
It was just a bit of a
Once they
worry.
started, they just made an effort to speak to people and made an effort to get to know people. And naturally, you're dealing with people constantly anyway, especially in our business. If you're not chatting to people, you're probably not doing your job overly well. So
Mm.
it's tricky to get lonely when you're speaking to new people every day. And again, if you're not doing that, you're probably not doing your job properly. So yeah, I think it's a big concern of people, but I think often it doesn't end up being a reality if they make the effort.
Yeah.
But of course, if they don't, then that's going to be tricky.
So how do you make sure that sort of strong communication, collaboration within your sort of fully remote recruitment team happens?
Yeah, so I just take a very transparent approach. So if there's a problem, I'm going to articulate it. If there's something good happening, it's going to be articulated. If there's something exciting happening, it's going to be articulated. If somebody's leaving for a reason, that will be articulated, because it's very easy for people to feel like they don't know what's going on within the business. And so
Yeah.
you sort of have to make a conscious effort to update people. So there are occasions where I'll say, look, everyone needs to be on tomorrow morning's call. I need to talk to you all about something. And it might be someone, like we had someone try and steal from us recently. And that person, of course, disappeared off of our systems and everything very quickly. And I didn't want people to feel like stuff was happening without them being aware of it. So sort of taking the time to explain what's going on and why things are happening and all of that sort of stuff is quite important. So I think just complete transparency over not over flexibility over communication is key, and just giving people, creating a safe space, I guess, so that people always are comfortable to talk to you as well, and approach you about most things, because we still have the sort of, right, I don't know how to approach this conversations, or what would you do here, or I've got this, but I think this is wrong. Could you give me a hand? Like all of the conversations you would have with people in the office, we still have. It's just done over a video call or over a phone call or whatever, rather than being face to face. But the strategy conversation is still exactly the same as it would have been if we were face to face. There's no difference. And theoretically, people go, well, you can't listen to phone calls. Of course, you blooming can. Most modern phone systems have the ability to listen in if you want to listen in, and there's whisper settings so that if you want to tell the person what they should be doing or what they should be saying, but not the other person to hear, you can, and all of that sort of stuff. So that's exactly the same as sitting there pressing a mute button on their headset and telling them. So it's possible to achieve all of the things we've historically achieved through technology that exists, and most of us have anyway. It's just most people don't deploy that, but it doesn't mean it's not possible.
Yeah, and I really like what you said there about like the whole transparency piece, because I think that is what creates so much anxiety and worry. It doesn't even need to be remote, like in agencies in general, but if we're just talking about remote working, when people don't feel like they know what's going on. And I think that it's amazing that you just keep people updated, but it's not just with the difficult stuff, with the good stuff, the successful stuff, the exciting stuff, because I think then everyone just knows that they don't even need to overthink or worry, because you would just tell them anything that's happening, good or bad, they're going to know about it. And that is also great for things like retention.
And it's also explaining to them that in bad times, when things are going wrong, you're not going to be shouted at, you're not going to be abused. Like, it's not in my nature. We had somebody again recently who was lying on their stats, and we could have sat there and gone absolutely apeshit, but the whole start of the conversation is, look, this is what we've discovered. We don't need you to admit to it or deny it, because it's blatant. Because we'd spoken to candidates who didn't know about the companies that they supposedly had final interviews with and were waiting on offers, and these people never knew about the company. So it's like, we know that's the problem, and note we're not screaming at you about it. So should we just have a sensible conversation about what's gone on and be honest with each other? And sort of taking that fairly balanced approach of just like, what's shouting and screaming going to achieve with anyone? It's not going to achieve anything. So instead of doing that, let's just be honest and frank with each other and have a conversation. And everything can be done over conversation. If you tend to be screaming at someone, it's probably because you've lost your ability to act logically in that situation. So I try and stay pretty balanced in most situations as well, which some people make tricky, but yeah, I'll give it a go.
Oh, I still don't understand. You're the second person that's told me that they've had that happen to them recently, where somebody has been fibbing a little bit, about the work they've got coming in, figures, and it's all, it's on the CRM, the data is there, and it's just kind of like, I don't know why people think they'll ever get away with it, but
and the lies are normally very obvious. It always tends to be. It always tends to follow, oh yeah, no, I haven't put it on the system because I only speak to that person through WhatsApp or whatever. It always starts with something like that. It's like, okay, we'll put the WhatsApp messages on the system then, because we need a trail of the conversations you've had. Oh yeah, no, it's with this person I know, and that would be weird. And like, okay, and then the reality is, it's just it's a
red flag,
complete work of fiction. But they almost talk with some people, because over the years we've had it, and I've seen it in normal agencies that are in the office, and they almost start. It's almost like they believe it after a while. They start to sort of sell this lie so far that they almost start to believe it's true. And the individual in question who was lying about their stats, when me and Rob were having a conversation with them, we said, look, this is what we know, and they genuinely went, that's not true. That candidate has spoken to that individual. It's like, we know they haven't. They don't even know the company exists. So that's not physically possible. And it's like, oh, they must be lying. And we went, okay, so just so you're aware, once we realised that one was false, We also then spoke to the other two that had supposedly second interviews yesterday. None of them knew about it either. So either
Are they all lying?
all
Or
three are lying, or you're lying. And it's like, and it's weird sometimes, even with all that, people still don't admit they're lying. But yeah, I've always been of the view that if you're caught, even if you have been lying, if you're caught out, front it. Don't go the other way, because you're only going to make yourself look more stupid if you try and patch your way out of a situation where that you are clearly in the wrong.
Yeah. And I think the point there as well is that, there's that argument, remote working doesn't work, it's, this and that you vote the same. These things happen in an agency. This has nothing to do with the fact that they're remote workers. This happens in an agency, in an office, where people are there Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, or whatever hours they work. So it's just a reflection of wherever you are working or running your agency, the same things are going to come up.
I've spoken to people at massive ones, like huge ones, where people have been doing 3-hour meetings with dead people, as in clients that had died.
I remember. You've got to tell this story, actually.
And it was either Michael Page or Robert Walters or one of those types of businesses of that size. And the guy had his KPIs he needed to hit. So, and part of that was X amount of meeting time in a week. And so he was having meetings with a dead person. But the nuts thing is, we may have discussed it when we were on my podcast talking about it, but they didn't even sack the guy because it's like he's hitting his KPIs. Like, well, he's not billing. He can't bill a company run by a dead person. Like, that's not a thing. So yeah, it's and that was definitely not a remote working role. That was full time in the office, and he was having 3-hour calls with dead people and
person that's not even on this planet.
No, exactly. So dodgy people always have the ability to be dodgy wherever you sit them. Like, people that don't want to work will always try and find a way to not have to work. So that's quite normal. It's just people believe it's easier in remote environments. But what everyone forgets is, if you buy a CRM and I buy the same CRM, whatever that CRM may be, we all have the same reporting functionality. We all have the same ability to track the usage of all of the platforms we have. Like, just because you're working remotely doesn't mean you suddenly lose all the data you would have anywhere else. The only difference is you can't physically see them tapping away. But if nothing's being put on a system, if there's no activity on LinkedIn, if there's no activity on the calls, on the phone system or whatever, that's the same as if they're in the office. But somebody can sit there picking up a phone and not making calls and doing that on a keyboard and make it look just as likely that they're doing or not doing what they should be doing. So my belief is that if you want to check up on people, you can, regardless of where they are. But my default is, if people are doing what they should be, you shouldn't need to check up on them. I don't go out my way to do that. But when I have the fear in me because something isn't checking out, well, I can look at all the same things anyone else can. We don't suddenly have to put blindfolds on to hire people remotely.
No, and actually we've mentioned within that part of the conversation, CRMs, tools, tax sort of stuff, working remotely. What are the tools or technologies that you have seen be sort of a game changer for remote recruiting? Things that you might use?
So in reality, the tech stack is kind of similar to a normal recruitment business now, because most of the software provisioning is done through web portals and things like that anyway. So it doesn't really matter if you're in an office or not. Like, automation's great for marketing efforts, for removing mundane tasks. Phone systems have got infinitely better. But the weird thing is, I think if it was pre-COVID, a lot of the tech we all deploy would be different, because there'd be a lot more use of Teams and Zoom and other equivalent platforms. But in reality, those platforms are used by everyone now. So I think tech stack wise, it's pretty similar to normal, traditional in-office environments now. But that's just because all of those tech platforms had to provision themselves in a way that worked remotely because of COVID. So effectively, things that were held on physical servers that you had to physically go into an office for almost disappeared overnight in sort of March 2020. And And now, of course, the software providers aren't going to go back to doing things that can't be provisioned remotely, because effectively, if the thing can be
They'll be
provisioned
losing
remotely,
out.
it also doesn't matter if you log in from your physical office. So I think weirdly, the tech stack now in most recruitment facets is designed for remote workers now, rather than being designed for people in an office. It just happens that lots of people are situated in one location for the use of it if they're office based. But most things you can
But
pick
it's
that
no
laptop
different
up
as
and go
well
anywhere
to an
else.
agency having multiple offices in different locations.
Exactly. There's
It's no,
always the first
it's just,
person on the ground in that region,
huh?
but there's always the first person on the ground in that region, wherever
Yeah, so
that
it's no
region may
different to
be.
people
So
working remotely, is it?
no, exactly. And I had that conversation recently, and somebody was like, "Yeah, but what about if somebody's working abroad?" I'm going, "Okay, how many UK agencies have opened an office in America where there's one person?"
Yeah.
Huge numbers. I was going to swear, and then I remember not to. Huge numbers of them have.
Well done.
And have they all been failures? No. Some of them have gone on to build big businesses. Many haven't, but many have. And that individual was as remote could be, different time zone, different geography, everything, still managed to make it work. So we've all been, as you say, we've all been working with people who are remote to the wherever the head office is for a long time anyway. It's just people view it in a different light. They view it through the glasses they want to see it through, be it negative ones, positive ones. And that's the thing that I've always just taken the view of, does it matter? Like, does it matter where somebody is based?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm going to come back to you because we've got a few more questions to cover off.
Yeah, that's
But while I remember, I just wanted to mention. Now, I'm hosting this for Recruit CRM. We were mentioning Recruit CRMs in our conversation, and we're talking about remote recruiting today. I'm still a recruiter myself. I actually use Recruit CRM as my CRM provider. And essentially I'm the only person in my business, but I work from anywhere. I literally will go in coffee shops, other people's offices. I work from my office. The one thing that I enjoy about using this CRM is that, especially when you're working in so many different locations, it needs to be easy to use. We've got a lot of things that we need to think about, managing clients, managing candidates, setting up jobs on the system, emails, posting jobs on various job boards. I mean, there's too many things to mention that we have to do in a day. But what I enjoy and what I feel is a massive benefit is that it's so easy to use. You don't need a tech degree to figure it out. You don't even need instructions to figure it out. It is very simple to just go on and get to grips with very, very quickly. There's tons of AI-powered features that practically do a lot of the heavy lifting for you anyway. You can do things like automate email sequences. You can use an AI tool to build an email for you if you're struggling to know what to say to a candidate, for example. It gives you insights how to make smarter decisions. There is a GPT integration. You can draft personalized emails really, really quickly. I mean, I would use all the rest of the podcast if I just kept going with all the features, basically.
Sounds like you're quite feature heavy there.
Yeah, so but look, if you're a remote recruiter and you're battling with things like time, you're working in different time zones, things like miscommunication, scattered workflows, you can do all of that in one place, basically in one system instead of lots of different things in your tech stack, basically.
Yeah.
So back to the
Efficiency is
questions.
key.
Pardon?
Efficiency is key.
Oh,
And usability
yeah.
as well, because for consultants to use a product, it needs to be easy for them to navigate. Otherwise, any complication is just going to be met with resistance.
I mean, I've been able to use it without any instruction manual, if that makes sense. Like, I've just been able to go on and find my way around it very easily. And especially as I'm on my own in my business, time is money. I've got two businesses to run, so very, very easy. But what I wanted to talk to you about is one of the first things you mentioned was the reason why you went fully remote working was around that work-life balance and things like your family. So what impact has remote work had on not just your work-life balance, but for your team as well?
Yeah, so it it just takes the pressure off to an extent, because you're not always thinking, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing this. You're kind of thinking, okay, I'm getting what I need to done. If I need to go and pick up the kids, I can pick up the kids. If I need to go take someone to a hospital appointment, I can do that. So sort of, or your own hospital appointment, go to the dentist, whatever. It just removes that pressure of, and what we try and remove is that sense of needing to ask somebody over those little things, because those are little things. But in certain organisations, those are treated like they're massive things, and you have to take half a day if you want to go and get your teeth done or whatever. And it's like, why? What possible win have you had as a business by taking that away from someone? They don't want to be there anyway, and you're now making them use up a holiday that they don't have much of to do that. Whereas my view is, if you need to go and get your teeth done, you need to go and get your teeth done. Just go and do it. If you want to go walk the dog, go walk the dog. And everyone goes, oh yeah, but if people can go and do what they want, they'll never work. Okay, well, if they don't work, they lose their job. But actually, most people will work harder because they appreciate that you're trusting them and giving them the freedom to do those things. So they want to, they don't have to, but they almost want to earn that sort of faith you've given them. Which again shouldn't be the case, but that's just how a lot of people seem to feel. So they actually work harder when they're there.
I always did. And because I had so much flexibility, you know, my agency that I was with when I was employed was a very similar mindset to you. Like no targets, no KPIs. It was like, if you achieve, that's all we care about. We don't care where you work, what you're doing, how many hours, just, you know, we didn't even have a billing target as such. So for me, you know, if I could only get a nail appointment at 3:00 on a Wednesday, I just took my phone and I would plan like interview prep calls, and I would just prep my candidates when I was getting my nails done.
Yeah.
You know, because I could do it on the go.
That's the whole work from anywhere thing, isn't it? It's
I could work from anywhere.
The most uncomfortable thing. But yeah, that's exactly it. You've got your phone. You're still doing the work you would have otherwise done. I couldn't type, obviously, because my hands weren't free. But well, I'm imagining back then your nails were probably about that long as well. Talons.
They're quite short now. They are quite short. But I think for me, like you were saying about earlier, I haven't got like your family with the kids, your wife. I haven't got kids, but I remember when my sister had her children, you know, especially when the twins were born and they were very young, being able to go and help and manage my day around spending time with my family. And I'm so close to my nieces and nephew because I was a big part of their life when they were babies. Yeah. If I was in an office employed by an agency that was fully office based, that would never have happened. I wouldn't have been able to do that.
No, and in reality, like, let's take where you live as an example. There probably aren't the agencies that would give the opportunities that you had with that one where you're working remotely, because the thing you did, that you're welcome to go into if you want, but the thing you did is probably not provisioned from the depths of Wales, and that's the other benefit. You're working in a sector that probably you wouldn't have been able to work in easily unless you were in a remote working environment. So it gave you opportunity
it gave me access would have been difficult to get. Yeah, and I think we talk about work-life balance. You know, it's not just people think then of the balance with your personal life, but you've also got to think about the work life being fulfilling.
Yeah.
And that comes into being able to work a niche maybe that isn't available locally in office-based roles, or for a type of company that's not available locally. You know, that's when you feel trapped and fixed in a location, whereas where you can work remotely, you can work for anybody.
Yeah. And I think people, when they hear work-life balance, the naysayers will go, yeah, but that just means people are going to do whatever they want. It's like, no, it's a balance. There's still work required in it. It's not, oh, I'm just going to go and mess about with my friends. It's actually, no, I have a job to do. I'm going to do it. I'm still paid to do the same job, but I'm just going to do it in a way that allows me to do some other bits. And it may be that you end up working way more 4 days a week, so you've got a bit of time on a Friday to go and have an elongated lunch with somebody, or whatever your version of that thing is. It doesn't matter as long as you're performing. You can do what you like, and that's the key, I think, is understanding that work still forms part of it, but life doesn't have to revolve around it in the same way as perhaps it kind of does when you have to physically be somewhere all the time.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Look, we've come to the end. That went very, very quickly. If you were still listening, thanks for sticking with us till the end of the episode. If you found this helpful, which I'm sure you have, we would both love to connect with you on LinkedIn. You can find Alex Stick's profile right in the description. Definitely link up with him. He posts daily, multiple times sometimes, don't you? So all really
Yeah, I'm a
relevant
pest.
content to what we've spoken about today. And while you're there, feel free to give me a follow as well. If you're looking for more recruitment insights, I've got a coaching and recruitment business page. I've got my personal page, the websites. They're all they're all linked in the description, basically. And if you are interested in learning more about Recruit CRM, all you need to do is head over to recruitcrm.io. Links again are in the description. But thank you all for tuning in to the Recruitment Podcast today. A big, big thank you again to Alex for sharing his insights. Don't miss our next episode where we'll cover the topic of one of my favourites, business development for and in recruitment agencies with Max Lyon. No, we were discussing, I never know if I pronounce his surname right, but we'll find out in the next episode. So thank you all for joining us, and I will see you there.
Thank you.